Which gives out first, I know.
You weren't supposed to hear that, Carrie. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. If everybody would stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then if Pastor Whitten, would you like to do the invocation, please?
Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that we can meet here freely. The door's open and come and go as we please and speak of those things that we want to speak of. Now, Father, we ask your blessing on this meeting tonight. And Lord, give us wisdom as we listen to those that would judge the people of the counties around us. Lord, give us the knowledge to choose who you would have us to choose, not only in this race, but in the great races that are running across our country. Now we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, first order of business. Normally this is when I read the meeting minutes. I would like to make a motion to dismiss the previous meeting minutes as they are in video format. One of the things that I will be doing before the July meeting is I will hand out a summary of all the candidate speeches, so I will watch all of the videos that I have taken, do a summation, and that summation will be ready for the July 25th meeting, which you'll have it before the August 2nd primary. So everybody's got to go and vote at the August 2nd primary. So that's what I plan on doing. So if it's okay with everybody, I make a motion to dismiss the meeting minutes.
I second your motion, carried.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, thank you so much.
Anybody opposed can leave.
And then Dave, you want to go over the treasurer's report?
Okay, account balance as of June 27th today is, let me start over again. Our beginning balance as of May 23rd was $1,004.59. We had an income of membership of $110. We had revenues from the Lincoln Reagan Day dinner of $350, which brought our bank account up to $1,464.59. We had one debit to Iosco County Republicans for costs that were incurred for the 2016 Lincoln Reagan Day dinner of $100, which brought our total cash assets to $1,364.59. We have $5 in our savings account, which gives us a total cash asset of $1,369.59.
I move that we accept the treasurer's report as read.
I second it, Carrie. We
All
accept it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Larry, you stated that you had a bill.
All right, I have a bill for our June 11th meeting at the high school. The invoice is for $352.81, and this was for building usage, technology assistance, custodial cost and wages and benefits to put that event on. I'd like to make a motion to pay this. We do have money coming from the other 4 counties that participated in this event. If they all come through with their contribution, our cost for putting on that event would be about $70. So right now we need to pay the bill and take care of that.
Move we pay it. I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I had a reimbursement request, so, yeah, I paid $25 to have a 8-foot table at the Gun, Knife, and Sportsman show, and believe it or not, that didn't come out too bad, so I would like to be reimbursed for that. And I also bought ink, lots of ink. I bought the high capacity, nice cartridges. So that total comes to $97.44, and I'd like to make a motion to be reimbursed for that.
I move that we reimburse you the full amount.
I'll let Larry second it.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. So you got 2 checks, right?
Yeah.
2?
2. One for,
Oh, what, you mean the 300?
You got one more to write too.
Oh, really?
We'll talk about this one in a minute. This one's for the fair, so when we
Oh,
talk about upcoming
okay,
events.
all right, that's fine. Okay, so that's the treasurer's thing. I was going to quickly go over the event report. As Larry talked about, we had the June 11th candidate forum for the candidates for the 106. Overall, it went very well. I wish my web camera, my live stream had gone a little bit better, but luckily Dave Chandler's father-in-law had recorded it, so it is actually available on our YouTube site. Good video. Frankly, if you haven't decided who you're going to vote for in regards to our 106, our 4 candidates for the 106, which is Peter Battalia's seat, they are Sue Aller, Jackie Krajak, David Ladd Chandler, and Jesse Osmer. Watching this video, it's 2 hours, it will basically tell you who aligns most with you. It was a really good event. We had a lot of people in the lobby. Jack Bergman was there. There were
Battaglia, Stamus, we had a number of other people that came out. Dave Riffle was there.
Yep.
We had all 5 county chairs represented in the lobby. So all 5 counties of the 106 district participated to some degree. From
Frank?
Sheboygan to
Yeah.
Standish. I mean, you guys that are running understand what the 106 is all about. Frank's group chose Ranch, ran the concession stand, so they did a fantastic job there.
They need a lot of candy.
Got a lot of candy? Or ate a lot of candy?
The other event that took place was the...
Hang on, Carrie, just back up. What was that YouTube address for that?
Oh, heck.
I need to jump.
I'll have to, well, okay, if you go on to youtube.com and you type in Alcona County Republicans, we come up, I think we're the first one that comes up, and you can click on that, go to our videos, and it should be, I think it's the last thing that I uploaded, so it should be right on top. Okay.
You can get to that from our just normal website
You
too, can't
can
you?
get to it, yeah, you know what? AlconaCountyRepublicans.com, acrepublicans.com. Right on our homepage, I think just a couple of lines down under new content, it posts the link. I think I did put the link in for the video right there.
Yeah.
It's youtube.com/XYZ. It's a few, yeah, so
It's easy
Google
to just
search and
go-
you'll
it's
find
easy
it.
to just go and look for
Got
it.
it.
Carrie, did you get any count on how many people had watched?
The live stream got a total of 6 people at the height. By the time we wound things down, it was 1 person stuck out to the end. However, the video online has already gotten, I want to say, over 50 hits. So people have been watching the full 2-hour video. It's the good video. So I know it's getting some traffic. I
It's
know
okay to
getting
share
traffic.
that on our different sites.
It is free to the public. Anybody can watch it. You can share it.
Have you got any feedback from James Hogue on the video? I know from state perspective, they were supposedly going to watch or be part of that, so
Okay. I
we need
haven't.
to touch base with them and
Okay.
check and see
Maybe
if,
he's having fun with his new baby.
yeah, okay. Got to be some excuse.
Yeah. baby's less than a month old.
Yeah.
So I saw the Facebook post, cute little girl.
Sure.
So June 18th, I did the gun, knife, and sportsman show that was at the Alcona recreational area, the fairgrounds in Lincoln. And it was kind of slow, not too bad. I did get 3 inquiries about our meetings, and I also got 13 people to sign the, what is it, no guns, no guns, no deals petition. I had geared the board completely towards the Second Amendment and sportsman activities like referring to the DNR and stuff like that. So I did get some interest. You can tell when people walk by and they see the Republicans part. If they do that, let them keep walking. But I would say the majority of people who passed by at least said hello and took one of our handouts. So overall, I think it was beneficial to attend the gun and knife show. Plus, I got me a good concealed carry gun. So with that, we're going to move on to the speakers. We will start with ladies first. Nicole Palumbo is currently a lawyer out of Tawas City, and she is running for the 23rd Circuit Court Judge. You can either stand behind the podium or in front or whatever you would like.
I'll go up there if that's...
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. I appreciate very much the opportunity to come and speak with you this evening. I'm actually the prosecuting attorney for Iosco County. Good. I have been an attorney for 18 years. I'm born and raised in Iosco County, Tawas area, and graduated from Tawas area high school, 1991. Everybody always wants to ask me how old I am. So I'm 43. Have been an attorney for 18 years. So after I attended Western Michigan University, have a business degree, and then went on to Valparaiso University School of Law in Northwest Indiana and obtained my law degree. Was very fortunate to be able to earn scholarships, academic scholarships, for my undergraduate and my law degree, because it allowed me the opportunity to come back home, which was my goal, to be here, be with my family, and live in this area. I had a private practice for 14 years prior to running for prosecuting attorney, and the first 7 years of that, I was the part-time assistant prosecutor here in Alcona County, and worked up here and did that work while I had my private practice in Tawas. Even though my practice was in Tawas, is the nature of our area, would be in Alcona, Oscoda, Tawas, Aranac, Mount Morenci, way down south, all over the state. But what really, a big change from a perspective from my career though was 4 years ago. I had an opportunity to see what was going on in our prosecuting attorney's office in Iosco County. And there was a lot of things that I felt could be done better and needed to be done for our community, and realized that I was in a position to do something about it. So I ran for prosecuting attorney and was elected. And so these last 4 years, I have been working very hard at getting in good programs, establishing I believe fair policies, treating people in cases based on the facts and circumstances, not giving special treatment because of who someone is or who someone knows. The position of the 23rd Circuit Judge, Judge Myles, is retiring, and that left this position vacant. And it was a very difficult decision because I had to choose between running for prosecuting attorney again because my term is up, or running for judge. And I thought very long and hard about it, and realized that of all the work that we put in as prosecuting attorney, unless we have a judge that's going to make good decisions based on the law and applying the law to the facts, and continuing on with some of the programs that I've worked so hard to implement, that all the hard work I do as a prosecutor would mean nothing if I didn't have a judge that was going to be able to work with them and follow the law. So I decided to run. And I believe it's important, this position is very important, as was mentioned. The 23rd Circuit Judge, I mentioned the counties, Iosco County, Alcona County, Iosco County, and Aranet County. The 23rd Circuit Judge hears the most serious felonies, the most serious criminal cases, and also the most serious civil cases from a dollar amount. But the circuit judge also has the authority to make those decisions that don't come with a dollar amount, where they call specific performance, where they have the authority to decide where a boundary line is between properties, or restraining orders, things of that nature. So it's very important to have a judge who's going to make well-reasoned, impartial, and just decisions, and apply the law as written. And the whole body of our law, we have case law, and it's ever evolving, and it's very important to have a judge who stays up and current on the law, whether it's through legislation or decisions that affect the law. The position also, as I mentioned, I talked about programs. Everybody thinks about the judge sitting on the bench and in presiding over a trial. And while that is a very important function, the position is also in part administrative and also policy making. And so some of the programs that I've worked very hard with and to work on, expand on, have been done in cooperation with the judge. We work to identify individuals who have mental illness and work with the Saddle Valley Community Mental Health for assessments so that we can incorporate treatment into the system when treatment is appropriate. We have, I know that many members here are familiar with the 23rd Circuit Drug and Sobriety Court. It was started in Alcona County many years ago and had the opportunity to expand into Iosco County. And I have worked very hard to continue that growth and to utilize that, because the biggest problem that we have right now facing our communities is drug addiction and the crime that results from that drug addiction. As prosecuting attorney, I can tell you that probably, and I primarily handle the felony cases in our office, probably 85% of the cases that I am dealing with are directly related to drug addiction. They are either the possession charges or the crimes that result from addiction, home invasions, where people are breaking into homes to seek money or drugs themselves. When we look at our criminal justice system and what we do and how we handle it, there are absolutely and certainly times where incarceration is the answer, and we need to have individuals removed from our community and incarcerated. But the reality is of what our communities are facing is that the vast majority of individuals are not going to be permanently removed from society. They are going to be in our communities. And unless we do something to address the addiction issues, these individuals are only going to reoffend and victimize new people in this ever constant search for this substance that they are addicted to. So the Drug and Sobriety Court is a very effective tool in breaking this cycle. It combines a component of punishment with treatment with an intensive probation and supervision. And it combines education as well as a social network, encourages individuals to find jobs. It is not a fix for people. It is helping them, equip them with the tools to help them fix what's going on, and helps build a network so that they can live within our community and become productive members of our community. And it is working. It is an evidence-based program, and it is something that while it's not 100%, it is certainly far better than doing nothing at all. And the success stories, when you see those success stories, it is so amazing to see individuals who have been in the system time and time again and see them and see that they're sober, see that they're working, that they have a job, that they have been reunited with their family and taking care of their families, and being productive members of our community. So as prosecuting attorney, I have worked with the 23rd Circuit Court, identifying individuals, referring individuals, but I also work with, in Iosco County, to develop a family dependency court, which is very similarly modeled after the adult drug court, but is used in the abuse neglect cases. Individuals whose children have been removed from their home because of abuse and neglect. And it's that same concept that we have individuals who, they have children, and they are in the system, and rather than have them for years flounder in the system where the children are in foster care and back and forth, we're actually trying to address the underlying issue as to why they're in the system and focus on that. And so as the prosecuting attorney, we can look at these programs, but if you don't have the cooperation with the court and be able to implement this and continue this on, we can't have these things that are a benefit to our community. When we talk about those cases where we have a local, what we call a local or community sanction, that is after an assessment is done and it's determined that this individual is appropriate for a community sanction. But one of the things that is important to understand and as a community is what is happening with our prison system in Michigan and what's going on in our prison system and how this at the state level is interplaying with at a local level. And what is happening since 2006, we have had a dramatic decrease in our prison population, okay? We went from about 50,000 prisoners to down to 40,000 prisoners. There was a number of prison closings. This approximate 20% reduction in prisoners resulted in how much reduction in budget for the Department of Corrections? Does anybody have a guess? How much less they spent?
0.
You are correct. 0. Their budget did not decrease at all. Remained flat. So what happens when you decrease the population by 20% but still spend the same amount of money is that the per prisoner cost shoots up. And we look at, oh my goodness, look how much we're spending in the state of Michigan per prisoner. And so the response is, we have to do something about this. Let's close some more prisons. We'll save some money, we'll close some more prisons. And as many of you are probably aware, they just closed another prison, or are going to be closing the prison over in the Traverse City area. When that happens, and the reality is, it is based on money. It is not based on whether or not we have a need for prisoners. And I say this because your question is, who goes to prison? In the state of Michigan, in 2013, approximately 38% of people convicted of assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder, which is a 10-year felony. Approximately 38% of those individuals that were convicted of that crime did not go to prison. They were sentenced to county time. Our county jails are full. Our county jails fill up. We, as a local community, pay the cost of these inmates in our county jails. Felonious assault, another felony. Almost 70% of people convicted of felonious assault did not get sentenced to prison in 2013. These are questions that are being posed to our legislature. These are questions that our judge makes the decision as to what is an appropriate sanction. So, but what's the interesting side of things and where it really comes into play is that whenever someone is convicted of a felony, the Department of Corrections does an assessment on these individuals. And they look at what their prior record is, and they look at the offense variables, and they do a report. And then they make a recommendation to the judge as to an appropriate sentence. When they do this, they utilize what's called sentence guidelines. Sentence guidelines is a system that's put in place by our legislature. So even when you hear of a individual being convicted of a 20-year felony, these sentence guidelines are really what dictate what the sentence is going to be. And so up until last year, these sentence guidelines were mandatory. And there was a decision last year that came down from the state Supreme Court that said, no, they are not mandatory, they are only advisory. But you still have to do them. And so the Department of Corrections is the gatekeeper, and they are making the recommendation to the judge as to whether or not someone should have community sanctions or not community sanctions. And let me give you an example of a situation that played out in Iosco County a couple of years ago when the guidelines were mandatory. We had an individual who he wasn't busting up drugs, he was busting up individuals to sell drugs in our community. Literally hopping on a bus and coming to our community to sell drugs. One of these individuals that he brought up here was on parole for murder 2. Prior to committing murder, he'd been convicted of delivery of controlled substance. So he already had a prior drug dealing offense. Then he spent approximately 18 to 20 years in prison for murder. Fortunately, our law enforcement were able to identify this very early on, and he was arrested and he was convicted, and he had a sentence guideline range, and this at the time was mandatory, that the judge should send him anywhere from 5 months in the county jail to 23 months in prison. Now mind you, this individual was on parole for murder, had no connection to our community, and the Department of Corrections recommended to our judge that he spend 12 months in our county jail, that was the appropriate sanction for this individual. So it's very important to have a judge that's going to recognize this, and the Department of Corrections is supposed to be the ones providing that information to be able to rely on to say that this individual can be rehabilitated and is safe to integrate back into our community. To have a judge that's going to recognize when these recommendations are not appropriate and to make a decision with the interest of safety for our community at the forefront in mind. And so it's things like this that having a solid working understanding of what is actually going on and what is at play, and working within the system to protect our community. And that's really the core of this, is that as a judge, the decisions that a judge makes absolutely impact our community on a daily basis. And having someone who is going to combine common sense with belief in our system, but also understanding that the law is the law and applying that law, and utilizing all the tools that we can to effectively seek justice and have justice for our community. So, thank you.
Can we do a question and answer period?
Yes, indeed, you have 12 minutes. Yep.
I got a couple, and or you and Keith both, but he can answer when he comes up. But I believe in a two-party system in the whole world. Either you're conservative or liberal. Where do you stand?
Well, as a judge, as a partisan, it's a non-partisan position.
Right.
Okay. And it is, to me, it's funny you use the words, are you a conservative or a liberal? You don't use the word Democrat or Republican.
Right.
Correct.
Because in your mind, sometimes that starts to shift. Yes or no?
Well, basically, any government, totalitarianism, monarchy, they're either liberal or conservative, period. I mean, really, there's just really two parties. So where do you fall? Do you fall conservatively, or would your decision be more on the conservative nature on the bench, or would they be more, do you think you need to be more liberal? And fair is a nice word, but really, are you a conservative judge, or are you a
Well, and the reason why I'm not answering you, I am not answering you directly, because I do want to know what you think and what that means to you. Because as it relates to you know, you talk about the two-party, but I always think of it as a triangle. And you have the libertarian side of things as well, where you have the certain conservative, liberal in social conservatism and fiscal conservatism and those types of aspects. So how I am, I guess the best way to describe it is how am I as a prosecutor? And maybe that's the way to describe it. I believe that it's important to set policies based on the law. As an example, there was not set policies before in the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney as it related to drinking and driving offenses. So it would make a difference who someone was, or who someone knew, or what attorney they hired for a drinking and driving offense. I believe it's important that people are treated fairly, and that if their actions, if the law is such and they have violated that law, that we would not make an offer to a non-drinking and driving offense because of who someone was or who their attorney was. Now, if there were facts or circumstances that the stop was not proper stop, or there was evidence that was going to be suppressed, then we would certainly take that into consideration. But as it applies to what the law is, I believe that it should be applied across the board fairly. As it relates to the ideas of whether or not we should implement components of rehabilitation into our criminal justice system, I absolutely believe that we should have rehabilitation within our criminal justice system. Do I believe that there are times and places for a judge to make laws? No, I don't. That's the job of the legislature to make the laws. It's the job of the judge to hear the facts and the circumstances and apply the law to the facts. Does that answer your question?
Well, basically,
I would say that's constitutional. That's more of a constitutional look at it, which is a little bit on the conservative side.
But no.
That's
but I'm
my
just saying, I mean,
interpretation.
Somebody comes in, they're an offender, or they got a record as long as my arm.
Right.
I hope you throw a book at them.
Well, and absolutely, you take, and that's why I wasn't quite sure what your question was, because, and that's it, I mean, as a prosecutor, I mean, we absolutely, you try, is there a youthful, is it someone who has, there are some crimes that people commit that are absolutely, doesn't matter if it's the first time or not, they need to be removed from society, and I absolutely believe that as a prosecutor. There are other times where we have individuals who have made decisions that were poor decisions, but they absolutely have the ability to accept responsibility, have some punishment, but be able to be within our community and reintegrate into society and work and be taxpayers and to be a part of our society. So I do believe that it's important. There's a reason why we have a human being making decisions and not a computer. If you want to put in the information to a computer, you're going to get a certain, response. But you need to have an individual who's going to assess the situation and make it, and absolutely make a judgment call. Is this somebody who, given all the facts and circumstances, appears to be able to be rehabilitated? And if the crime is not such that it is, are they a youthful offender? But as you said, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, absolutely. Our system is set up to punish someone more harshly. 2 people, we just were talking about that, the armed robbery that took place in Oscoda. There was an armed robbery in Oscoda. 2 individuals walked in, did the exact same thing. They came in together and committed an armed robbery. One of the individuals had a significant prior criminal history, and he received 19 years minimum sentence, approximately. It was like 18.75 years minimum before he'll be eligible for parole. The other individual had only 1 minor misdemeanor offense, and so he received a minimum of 2 years in prison, committed the exact same offense.
Moving out there. You have your hand up, ma'am?
Yeah, I changed my mind.
No, it was a 2-part question
Okay.
anyway.
Hey, you can't take up off
Just one more thing. Down in Standish, we have a correctional institution. The last I knew, it was still empty. I just, I think, we're a capitalist nation. Why doesn't somebody buy that and take the overflow from all these county jails, from the bridge to who knows where, and house these people, and it's cheaper for the counties to they can put people somewhere else, and that's a wonderful correctional system, or facility. And, gosh, I just wish somebody would do that. I think if I had enough money, I'd do that. I'd probably make a lot of money and save the state and the taxpayers a whole lot of money. So, but anyway, I'd make money at that myself. I'm really upset with the new jail systems. Our jail here, they talked about building a new jail, and you can't put it out here in the country because you gotta have city sewers. You gotta have wells, you gotta have city water. You know, I mean, we're talking about criminals, and I think this is why I'm a big fan of Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona. I think what he's doing is the right thing, and we need more of that in this country rather than less. But I'm done.
Is that a policy that you could possibly implement?
As far as the,
As-
as a judge, no, that would not be a policy that you'd be able to implement as a judge
Okay.
to change the state, prison into a county facility.
Okay.
I got a question. If-
Frank's
Oh, I'm sorry.
next.
Go ahead. I'm gonna be more blunt.
Okay,
Where do you stand with your faith?
with my faith.
Yeah.
I have a lot of faith, but I also there is, as it relates to the criminal justice system and how that is applied, and as a judge, it is important to apply the laws to the facts of the case, and how that plays into the decisions that you make. I would say that it's very important that the decisions that are made are based on the law and not on faith. That being said, part of, I talked about the rehabilitation and the treatment for substance abuse. A key component of that rehabilitation has to do with spirituality and individuals giving over to a higher power, and how that works within our system, and what that is a part of. It is something that we've seen time and time again, that when individuals within our system can get in touch with that for themselves, that they do better and they are more successful. But I do believe as a judge and as a prosecuting attorney that there is that separation, and that the decisions are based on the law.
Just to follow up with that point. I spent 12 years at Jackson Prison teaching Bible study.
Okay.
I worked with some pretty hardcore criminals. And prisoners that showed no affiliation with any faith whatsoever, the recidivism rate was in the 90%. It dropped significantly. I mean, almost 60% with ones that have. I know we like to keep on talking in our country about the separation, but from a strictly number standpoint, what it costs to incarcerate people, I really believe that we have to, as a society, look more into that as, just as a numbers thing. Forget the faith part of it, just as the numbers thing. Without it, you're bounded and determined to keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again, rehousing the same people. Where, I've watched in the court system over here, where it's not preached from the bench, but it's highly recommended that you find, get in touch with that. And so I didn't think it's a question that's not pertinent. It really definitely is.
I don't think that it's not pertinent. That's why I was saying that you find that, and it relates to treatment with substance abuse. It's a highly important component to success in that. And certainly, if someone doesn't have and isn't in touch with faith and feel that there's repercussions, the ability to reach that individual.
I just find it interesting that our lawmakers can't get beyond that You know, I mean, I know the law is there for a reason, but, you know, as a public official, you know, spending that money that you're talking about, you know, it looks like there's a definite cause and effect here. You know, I see it over here at the drug court on a regular basis. You know, the pastors here, he can tell you, he sees it all the time. You know, the ones that accept a relationship.
Well, and that's why it's important though, because we have the Constitution that talks about the separation of church and state, and
Tell me where in the
They're wrong.
Constitution.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
wrong.
that's wrong.
Tell me where.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Tell me
Now you
where.
opened up a can of worms.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'll answer that, but I know she keeps
No, I want to
asking.
know where in the Constitution.
It talks
Just-
about,
Hang on. Janet, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to just go a little further with this, maybe be a little politically incorrect.
okay,
But it seems to me that the role of a judge is to make decisions. And if it was real cut and dry and you didn't really have to apply any thought process particularly, or bias, or ideas, or understanding, or interpretation, if you didn't have to do all that, we wouldn't need a judge.
right,
So we're asking you to think.
absolutely.
And we're asking you to think with values that we value if we're going to vote for you. So it's important to us to know that you've got the guts to stand up and say what you believe faith-wise. I mean, the mayor of London has the guts to stand up, whether you like it or whether you don't, and say, I'm a Muslim. But here in this room, you've got a conglomerate of people who probably, for the most part, are all pretty steeped in Judeo-Christian values. If she says she's a Baptist and she says she's a Catholic, we feel pretty good about knowing that we're on the same page. And we kind of probably like the confidence of knowing that you have the integrity to tell us what your faith base is, just like the mayor of London.
So you're asking, I mean, I guess that's the question you're asking, what religious affiliation that I have?
Yeah,
Is that, oh,
if any.
he asked what role I
This
had.
is America. You don't
Yeah.
have to have a religious
Yeah, no.
affiliation, but whatever your belief system is, you need to have the guts to talk about it.
No, it's not, he was asking the role that I had as far as faith in what I do with my work, and I was explaining how that comes into play. But as it relates, but your question is as far as, you know, what is my religious affiliation? I was not raised under any particular denomination. My father was raised Catholic. My mom was not raised under a particular religious affiliation, but her mother was Baptist. So I was married in the Catholic Church with my husband, but I don't regularly attend any religious organization on any on Sundays, as far as that's concerned. But I was raised in.
Do you consider yourself Christian?
I do consider myself Christian. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I do consider
Okay.
myself Christian, but I'm not a member of the Catholic Church. I'm not a member of the Baptist Church. But
You got about 4 minutes.
Can I go next?
You're
I'll
next.
make this really-
Well,
Oh, we'll go to you in a second, just, this might help. Been kind of reading a few books on the law myself,
Okay.
and you were talking about case law and precedent.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and you start looking at all the case laws, we used to have, you had the Dred Scott decision where Roger B. Taney said, basically the best thing a black person could hope for was slavery. That was a Supreme Court decision. You had the, I think it's the Plessy case.
Plessy v. Ferguson?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
the one.
Yep.
I don't remember them all by heart,
Nope,
but
that's-
you get the point.
Yep.
Where there was segregation.
Mhm.
And then you had Brown versus the Board of Education, which kind of went against the Plessy case. So I guess my question is, how do you know what's the decision for which you would consider good precedent when it seems precedent can change from time to time?
Yeah. Case law changes all the time. It's ever evolving. Every time there's a decision that builds upon the case law.
But I mean, at some point, you're gonna have to say that, well, wait a minute, this wasn't right, or this wasn't right, I mean.
Yeah, well, and as it relates to what the local circuit court judge does, it's a little bit different function as it relates to decisions such as that are made at the Supreme Court.
But eventually, you're gonna judge a case, and if somebody doesn't like it, they're gonna go to the appeals.
They're gonna appeal,
Then they're
exactly.
gonna go to the state Supreme Court, and then again,
Yep.
if they don't like that decision, they're gonna go to the federal district court, and then eventually it may wind up, but you know, that's where all this stuff starts.
Yeah, so the concept is, or the idea is that we have laws, and that a law is passed by our legislature, and that as this law is then applied, sometimes there's cases and there's decisions that are made based on a law that's passed. And there's basically points that are made, and how are your fact scenarios similar to the fact scenario in this case where this decision came down. So every time you have a statute, and then you have a case that interprets that statute. So an example from the criminal side of things would be resisting and obstructing. That's a common charge that we see, and there's a law that would be in place that say you shall not resist an officer who's in the performance of their duties in the performance of their duties. So then the question comes up: okay, what if the officer is not being lawful in their performance of their duties? And that question is a question that is there within that case. So the first time that decision has to be made, then the judge is making that decision. Does the officer have to be lawfully performing their duties? And so they make a decision. If that gets appealed, then the Court of Appeals then reviews that and then makes a determination, yes, they do have to be lawfully performing their duties. So if an officer comes to your house, 1 minute?
Yep.
Okay. Officer comes to your house and says, I'm coming in, and you say, no, you don't have a search warrant, and you stop the door, they can't then arrest you for resisting obstructing because they weren't lawful in what they were doing. So as a judge, you are making some interpretations regarding what that is. Once that Court of Appeals makes that decision, that then is binding on the lower court to say, yes, now the next time a case comes before the trial court, they can look to that decision and say, the Court of Appeals has ruled that the officer has to be lawfully performing those duties in order for it to justify a resisting and obstructing charge.
Okay, you're done.
Did you answer the one question off the record or not?
If you want to talk afterwards, that would be fine, but we've already gone over by a couple of minutes, so.
I'll be more than happy to stay afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
So next we have Keith Moir. I wanted to get that right. And he is also a
Candidate for the,
lawyer, and he is candidate for, as well, the 23rd Circuit Court Judge. And please take the podium.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone tonight. I can say over the course of my campaign, I've met a lot of great people. And I can say I've only had 2 bad experiences going door to door. And having worked with the public since I was 18 years old, I can tell you that one gentleman's bad experience is just somebody who's mad at the world. When he said, "Get the heck out of here," I'm like, I thought about that about 30 seconds ago, because he was very, very concerning to me. Other than that, it's been a very, very positive experience. Do you always meet people who agree with you? No. What I have to say, hopefully people will listen to what I have to say. Hopefully they'll ask intelligent questions, which they often do. To me, the most important function of a judge, two important functions. Number one, a judge needs to recognize we have a system of government that has three branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. We're having discussions about the sentencing guidelines. And the thing is, yes, when the Michigan Supreme Court issued the Lockridge decision, they did hold, and you were talking about the law changing, up until the Michigan Supreme Court decision on Lockridge, Michigan sentencing guidelines were mandatory. An appeal worked its way up to the Michigan Supreme Court, because appeals don't happen overnight. And the justices held, correctly I think, that that was an unconstitutional restraint on the judge's duties. Because you and I are elected our judges to sentence people, and to say you have to follow these guidelines is not, they're not guidelines then, they're edicts. It is a computer program. Now, courtesy of Lockridge, we do have, Lockridge has said the sentence has to be proportional, and they refer to the Milborn decision. And what trial court judges are struggling with, and I know this from the judges I appear in front of, I know this from my interactions with several attorneys I've known over the, become to know over the 33 years of practice, both prosecutors and defense attorneys. What the heck is proportional under Milborn? And a lot of judges, I don't want to get reversed. I think it's going to be a while before we have an answer, a clear answer from a case going up on appeal as to what they mean by proportionality. And, you know, there are discussions in the earlier presentation about the sentencing guidelines, about where people are incarcerated. Now, who builds prisons is up to the legislature. Who builds and staffs prisons is up to the legislature and the governor. Right now, you have a very hotly contested race in the 106. We have a lot of candidates going door to door. Mr. Chandler's here. And I can tell because we're running into them all. These are people who are going to be motivated to do a good job. You need to be talking to these candidates now, because sentencing guidelines are by statute. You know a little bit about the law. You probably know that all the statutes are contained with the Michigan compiled laws. And the sentencing guidelines are in MCL, and if I was a computer, I'd spit out the site to you, but they're there. In the federal system, sentencing guidelines have not been mandatory for some time. But when I read my daily e-journal of updates of current appellate opinions every morning, and that's the bare minimum I read, and that's first I read the death notices to make sure I'm still there. Because if I'm not here, I'm not going to read another case, okay? But I see federal judges, case goes up to the 6th Circuit, federal judge exceeded the guidelines, which are not mandatory, and somehow it gets sent back because of the manner in which the judge articulated his or her reasons to exceed the guidelines. So part of these problems are being addressed. And you'll hear this, and you'll read this. Sounds like you've read a few opinions in your time, sir.
I've been reading Robert Bork and...
Okay. You also read where justices say, take it to the legislature, it's not the court's function. Because yes, I do agree, a judge is not a legislature. If I wanted to be a legislature, I'd be running against Dave Chandler. Okay. I don't want to be a legislature because my training is as a lawyer. And some of these questions are proper questions for the legislature and ultimately the governor. And if the governor vetoes the legislature, back to the legislature to try to override a governmental veto. The drug court system program here in Alcona County has been a huge success. Based upon my background, when Judge Cook announced, God rest his soul, what a great man. When Judge Cook announced the drug court program with Tom Lyko, thank you. Courtesy of my 10 years as a police officer, no, I wasn't born and raised up here. I was born and raised in Wayne County, and got a, Fabi? Okay, great, you have friends. But I did have the opportunity to work, my first career was in law enforcement. I was a police officer for 10 years. And after I had about, I think I had 4.5 years or so on, I had earned a bachelor's degree and decided I'm going to keep going to school and obtain a law degree and see what happens. Well, here I am. But I can tell you, from what I saw, and that's why I've been working with the public since I was 18 years old. I had a job in a supermarket, and then I had a job as a police cadet for 2 years, and then I became a police officer. So I've been working with the public for a long time. When I heard that program come in, is yes. And I've been very, very supportive of that program, and I have counseled a lot of clients to enter that program. I have also cautioned against clients going into that program that think it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. Because, Wayne, am I right? If they're just going in, like we're going to just slide through this program to avoid jail or prison, doesn't work, does it?
No, not at all.
And then it's usually even less attractive for them because Judge Frawley isn't too happy that they took a valuable seat in drug court because there are only so many resources available to drug court, and drug court should be treated where seats in drug court, places in drug court, go to valuable candidates. Sort of like you don't let just anyone into college, you let somebody in that has a chance of success. And the efforts by Tom Weichel, Judge Cook, Judge Frawley, David Cook is the drug court attorney, and at the risk of advertising for one of my competitors, David Riffle is the drug court attorney now, plus the drug court coordinator. Seneca is our current coordinator. Jeannie Yaki was a coordinator, Alyssa Pickler. I know the meetings that they have before drug court. I know when those meetings are because I can never get a hold of them. I know the time they put in, and they're doing an awesome job. And it's a great program. The most important thing I think about partisanship, we're at a luncheon this afternoon and that was asked. How would your partisanship, your affiliation affect you as a judge? My answer, absolutely not at all. Lady Justice is blind. If you ever notice the statue of Lady Justice holding the scales of justice, if you see a good one, a good reproduction, because there are some that, especially in the lawyer advertising, blindfold, it's blind to the person's race, sex, ethnic background, religion. Judge's duty is to interpret and apply the law. Judge may be overturned by a court of appeals. It happens, especially a trial court judge sometimes is making a decision a split second during a trial. An attorney makes an evidentiary objection, judge sustains it, later on, court of appeals, in the luxury of their ivory towers, with a couple law clerks doing their research for them, 2 years later, and after you read the whole transcript, a judge made an error. That's why a judge, we need highly experienced judges. I've been a member of the bar for 33 years. It'll be 33 years this November. And I've had an active civil and criminal trial practice that whole time. My first 18 years, I practiced in Wayne County before I was fortunate enough to move to northern Michigan. And quite frankly, one of the reasons I moved running for judge is I've done almost anything a lawyer can do except argue a case before the Supreme Court. Well, they only take about 100 or 150 cases a year, so I might win the lottery tonight, but that's not going to happen. Actually, there's no game now, I don't think so. I don't know. And I haven't had the privilege to serve as a judge. That is one of the many reasons I'm running for the judgeship. In addition to the fact I feel that I can do a good job, I have a lot to offer to the bench. But it's very important we stay within the law. We stay blind to outside influences. And we not be judges. When I say we, I'm kind of assuming I won. Positive attitude, but shouldn't be that positive. But a judge needs to stay independent of that, not only as to the people who are in front of them, but other special interests, other groups, maybe other judges. The circuit court judge, the 23rd Circuit Court judge hears appeals from district court. Circuit court judges hear a minimum amount of appeals, and not a lot, but it is one of the avenues of appeal from probate court. So if you have to be independent of even other judges, you have to make firm decisions based upon the law. Give you a little bit more about my background. I have been in practice up here since 2001. I've tried a lot of cases in this county. I've tried quite a few cases in Iosco County. Prior to moving up here, I tried cases where I lived and reside down south, and I've tried some cases in remote areas. That's, I think, the biggest quality I could bring to the bench is my experience. I do have a desire to want to perform the job. I can't really think of anything up here. I'm sure not going to stand up here and talk for the sake of talking. So why don't we get on with the questions and answers? Yes, Dave?
Yeah, well, you're a perfect guy to ask, because you've been on both sides of the bench as far as being a police officer as well. So, drug war's been going on now for 40 years. Could you give us your opinion on how the outcome of that, how it's working in your professional opinion, and how would that affect your decisions in the proportional sentencing guidelines you talked about?
But here's one thing I meant to say before I started, and I forgot to. Under Canon 7 of the Code of Judicial Conduct, a judge and judicial candidates are subject to the code, can only represent the faithful and impartial performance of their duties. Now, my thoughts on the matter are, I'm not going to tell you, how it's sentenced or something of that nature, because that would be unethical. But my thoughts are, you better believe it's a serious problem. Different people, different ways. Lately, courtesy of the way our healthcare system is run sometimes, I've had this happen to a few clients. Somebody say your age, Dave, never been in trouble in their life, other than a speeding ticket or something. They hurt their back working on their farm or whatever. I've had some back problems for a while. They go to the doctor, and the remedy these days seems to be more pills. I mean, looking around the room, I think there are a lot of us who understand that. So you get oxys or something. They make you feel good. The back pain goes away like that. I've had a few clients that get hooked on it. They go back to the doctor for the follow-up. Doc, can you fill my script? I can't fill that script. You're done. They're buying them on the street for $20, $25 a pill. That's not somebody who sought out to become a drug addict. You know, it's a cultural problem. The judge is kind of doing damage control. The prosecutor is doing damage control. Police officers doing damage control. As was stated earlier, if somebody's going to take responsibility for their actions and they don't have an extensive prior record, they are a good candidate for rehabilitation. If they're going to put in the effort for drug court, and Wayne Whitten will tell you, drug court, I tell my clients, drug court is a lot like Marine Corps boot camp, except the Marines are easier on you. But if you're going to put in that effort, that's somebody that can adjust. You know, obviously somebody who's actually distributing this stuff, and if they're a good dealer, they're not an addict. You have addicts who are supporting their own habit by selling to their buddies. But if you have a profitable dealer, he or she is smart enough to never touch it. So, you know, each case really needs to be judged on its individual basis, taking into account the facts and circumstances of the offense. Let's face it, nobody gets probation for murder. The facts and circumstances of the individual, and that's where the interpret and apply the law comes from. You know, I hope I answered your question. Judicial campaigns can be kind of bland because it's not as, you know, if I'm elected president, I will do this. You don't get that showmanship. And you have a follow-up question on that, Dave? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question that kind of dovetails into that, and it comes back to the point that you brought up earlier when you asked Ms. Palumbo if she were conservative or liberal in her meetings, and she said she was upholder of the law, which was neither conservative nor liberal, but, you know, maybe one of the two of you will eventually get to the Supreme Court. And when you get there, there'll be an opinion and there'll be a dissenting opinion. And generally, when we think about the rulings that come from the Supreme Court, we can line up certain judges and say they're pretty much conservative judges. These are more liberal judges. Why is that a bad thing to be?
First off, people have a reputation. They have a track record.
Right.
We know how Supreme Court justices are. However, that's us looking at their prior opinions. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's one of the marketing companies that is making money off lawyer jokes or lawyer things. There's a T-shirt, and they also make a plaque. It says, a good lawyer knows the law, a great lawyer knows the judge. And that doesn't mean you're buddies with the judge, but you frequently appear in front of that judge, and you know that this judge is likely on this type of a case to rule this way or sentence this way. And I've experienced that throughout the 33 years of practice. We had a judge in Wayne County whose nickname was Let Him Go Leo. Need I tell you what his sentencing practices were? We also had another judge, his nickname was Hanging Brain. Need I say any more? Now, obviously, we never repeated those names to the judges. But, so it's not a bad thing, but as far as our ethics rules, and as far as you look at, for example, Senate confirmations, there are questions that are not proper to be asked, and I guess that's something you take up with the Senate as to how you clear these judges for ultimate recommendation to the president because the president appoints by advice and consent. But first off, I have no interest in serving on the United States Supreme Court or the Michigan Supreme Court. I have no interest in leaving Iosco County. So it's not going to happen.
Well, it was a joke.
I understand.
I wasn't serious about
Okay.
it, although you're nice.
Well, you sounded serious, and
But no, my
I thought,
point
well, there's a
is-
voter if I want it.
No, my point is that we all, everybody in this room and everybody in the country, looks through a situation through a lens. Okay, it's the lens that's your character, who you are, how you see things.
Sure. And they also look through the lens of their point of view too. But I can tell you this: the way I was raised, the way I conducted myself through my career as a police officer, the way I continue to conduct myself as an attorney, I treat people the way I would like to be treated. I treat people with respect. I have always been very diligent in the practice of law. When the sentencing, we call them PSIs, pre-sentence information reports, come from the Michigan Department of Corrections, a conscientious judge takes that, grabs their highlighter, highlights the important parts to read over, maybe reads it more over, and really looks at that. And if the attorneys have objections, and sometimes the prosecutor may have objection to the sentence report, that the defense attorney may have objection. Address those objections. If it means ordering the Department of Corrections to issue another pre-sentence information report, the judge has the power to do that. Hear the case out, develop the record, and if it's a prosecutor saying the Department of Corrections scored this person wrong, they should guideline this, and that should move up to prison, address the issue head on. Don't try to kick the can down the road for the Court of Appeals. Contrary, defense attorney saying they scored this person too high. Same thing, address it. It is a human system. And unfortunately, as with everything else in life, I think the worst news sells newspapers. So, and I'm not about to say that cases that have been in the news aren't newsworthy, because there was one recently that's very newsworthy. One that comes to my mind, or probably a couple others, but I haven't had time to read the paper. I've been out meeting voters. The cases that are resolved in the trial court by way of a plea, by way of a sentence that the defendant isn't too thrilled with, but they can live with, that doesn't sell newspapers, man. You're never going to read about that in the paper. Well, in a local paper you will, because we print a lot here, and it's because our local residents want to know what's going on. But in other communities, it's not printed. But look in the national news. You never hear a news story about a case that went the way it was supposed to. You hear about a lenient judge, a too strict judge, whatever. It sells newspapers. Plain and simple. My approach is to be receptive to
5
everyone in
minutes.
front of us. Yes, okay.
5
Any other
minutes.
questions?
Yeah.
It's just 5 minutes.
Okay,
So-
who raised their hand first? I'm not the sergeant.
Let's do Dave Glass.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Glass.
Well, I just see this conversation going around in a circle. A friend of mine, and you acquaintance over the years, you can look him up on the internet. His name is Professor Morris Massey. He's a professor of psychology at the University of Colorado. And he opens his talk by saying, I am prejudiced. I am very prejudiced. He says, anyone who was born in Waco, Texas in 1935 and says they are not prejudiced is not telling the truth. Now that I tell you I am prejudiced, I can do something about it. I think before we even met you, we knew the parameters under which a judge is to operate. And we hope they operate that way all of the time. But we do know, as this lady has pointed out, that there are progressive and liberal judges. They didn't get to be that way. But if you're a Detroit policeman, you pretty much have been associated with Democrats most of your life. But now that you're running for, well, all of my Detroit policeman friends are, and I have a number of them, with the Teamsters, own a restaurant right here in town. But in any event, the point is that when we know that, and when the judge says it, then we can make a judgment. I mean, Donald Trump was very wrong in attacking that judge the way he did, for reasons I won't explain. But that judge is also biased too, when he says, I was raised by Muslim parents in a Muslim home, but that doesn't matter. I'm sitting on the bench and I'm ruling without any history. So you show me a Catholic that was raised in a Catholic family, that has been baptized Catholic, been to their first communion, and now has left the Catholic Church without guilt. And I'd like to meet them. Our past is something we drag with us. But when we run for judge, and I've seen it my whole life, we ignore our past. And that's what we're having happen here today and happened at lunchtime. We're fair and impartial, which we hope you are. But unless you know who you are, you can't overrule yourself in certain situations.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by overrule myself, because if it would be a question involving myself, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to hear that. As far as we all have biases, yes, we do. Because when I answer that one question, I say people look at things through their lens. I have friends across both sides of the aisle. I have Democrat friends, I have Republican friends. One of my closest friends from down in Detroit was a mentor of mine when I was a young lawyer. He's actually my father's age. And he's about as conservative could be. And I've had a lot of very intelligent and very thought-provoking conversations with them. I also have Democratic friends. The thing is, as a judge, you have to apply the law, and you have to cast those things aside. And there are times that judges don't like the decisions they're making. I'll never forget, I had a case in front of Judge Yenner, who's a very conservative judge. And Judge Yenner had to dismiss the case against my client. But he did look at the man and say, regretfully, Mr. Jones, I'm granting the motion that your attorney filed, which, by the way, he did a good job for you. The judge sent his message of, I don't approve. Keep in mind something that I learned very early in my career. Compliance with the law is the bare minimal form of acceptable human behavior.
1 minute.
Okay? So even though it says you don't have to always have your driveway clear of ice and you can't be sued, the common sense golden rule thing to do would be to shovel your walk so nobody falls and breaks their leg. Any other question?
Real quickly, just to follow up to what Janet was asking, and this is where I'm a bit confused, because I'm hearing the same thing. Do you need to have a record as a judge, and it's applied for both of you, that the record as a judge, so that it can be determined whether you would be considered a conservative or a liberal judge? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's
Because that's what we want to know.
Well, that's really more of, everyone has first day on the job.
I think I can help you out here. I've been reading Robert Bork for a number of years now. Robert Bork put very clearly in The Tempting of America, justices are neither conservative nor liberal.
Well, their decisions are.
Their
Yeah.
decisions are, do they read the rule of law and how they interpret? Is that
Pretty much that. I mean,
Here's a simple question for you.
sure.
Let's put your judgeship aside and let's look at you.
Okay?
Do you consider yourself in your personal life Christian, conservative, liberal? What do you consider yourself aside from being a judge?
I can help you. Let me
A
more than
second, a second.
One at a time.
Let him answer.
Okay.
What is it that grounds you? What is it that, at the end of the day, when you go to make a decision, what is it that you rely on?
The law.
Okay.
Now can you answer her question?
Exactly.
Okay. I'm a Christian. I attended Catholic schools all through high school. I went to a Catholic university. I consider myself a Christian. I do not go to church every Sunday, but I consider myself a Christian. And when I do go to religious services, I participate in those services. As far as conservative or liberal, from my personal perspective, I'm a pretty middle-of-the-road type of guy.
Okay.
There are things I recognize and agree to that conservatives talk about. I'm an outdoorsman. You look at my literature, I can't go hunting that English setter if the Second Amendment is trounced on. That's a personal view. I'm not saying anything as a judicial candidate about that. I see some other things, though, sometimes, I disagree with. We're all entitled to our own opinions.
Right.
But what you're looking for is somebody who's going to do their darndest to utilize common sense, apply the law, and even if I don't like the law, the things every one of you have to do at your job, you might not like, but you have to do it. Otherwise, there's chaos and disorder.
I'm a pet sitter, I have to clean up poop.
Yep. A lot of chaos and disorder.
Yeah. Okay, that's time, so,
Okay, thank you.
very good. Okay.
Finally, we have Tom Casperson, who is, oh my gosh, I was really into that there for a second, for the First Congressional District to the United States House of Representatives. So if you'd like to come up and please speak.
I'll be brief. They, my office may have screwed up here, but they're being very gracious to let me say something because they didn't quite know I was coming. So thank you for that. And
Thank Carrie, she's the chair of the meeting.
I'm queen tonight.
I'm Tom Casperson. I'm the state senator currently for the 38th Senate District. I'm in my last term. Served 6 years in the House, was term limited out. I ran in 2010 and got into the Senate. I am currently the first Republican to ever sit in the 38th Senate seat. My district leans pretty heavy to the Democratic side, although very conservative people. It's just grandma and grandpa voted Democrat and they vote Democrat, and that's kind of the makeup of the UP. As a legislator working in it, let me tell you why I got there. I'm a log hauler by trade. I was in the logging industry my whole life, born and raised into it, all with my grandpa and my dad. Worked with my dad for quite a few years, and then I took over in 1991 and ran it until I ran for office in 2002. Quite frankly, it's one of the things I'm most proud of, to be able to follow your family into a business and run it, and it was hard work and it was difficult, and we had to make payroll and we had to get the wood moved. So that's who I am, and it was that industry, two things that drove me into office. My industry, because I served on the board of directors of the Timbermen for the state of Michigan, watching us being really inundated by the government with rules and regulations and trying to put us right out of business as far as I'm concerned. And my faith. Appreciate you guys asking that question. I was just in Warren today, came up from Warren to here and met with quite a few pastors. And the reason we were meeting is because some of the things that are happening right now on the state level really are faith-based, and people of faith are being too quiet, in my opinion. And so the people that are opposing people of faith are very loud. And I'm talking about the gender issue, but my faith, my wife and I accepted Christ in 1984, and I became a believer. I went to Calvary Baptist Church for 3 of those years, and currently I have been serving at the Assemblies of God in Escanaba for 29 years. All 4 of my children have accepted and are following the Lord. I have 3 beautiful grandchildren, and our country desperately needs faith. I've heard conversations about drugs. St. Francis Hospital in Escanaba called for a special meeting with Judge Parks, Prosecutor Strawn, Chief of Police, Department of Human Services, 3 nurses, and the CEO of the hospital. They asked me to meet with them. I had no idea what I was going into. Sat down, and the nurses, in tears, informed me that 1 out of every 3 babies is born drug dependent right now in Escanaba. And I'm hearing everywhere I go now, this seems to be cropping up. Folks, I can't pass a law to solve that problem. That's a breakdown of a moral foundation that's falling apart. Family falling apart. And there's a lot of reasons that go into it, but you know, on the legislative side of it, we try to fix K-12 education with standards, and now we're going to make teachers do things, and they better learn how to teach. We're all these things. Think about that, folks. In 5 years from today, that 1 in 3 is on their way to K-12 education, more than likely. And we're going to expect teachers to start educating those kids when moms and dads aren't being moms and dads anymore, to that level. It's really frightening. So those are the things that have motivated me. I want to try to make a difference. I'm convinced the government's not listening. They're not listening to us anymore. I always use the Thomas Jefferson quote of when people are afraid of the government, you have tyranny. When the government's afraid of the people, you have freedom. Does anybody truly believe the government's afraid of us? No. Really? The departments? They're not afraid of us. That's what I see happening. I've served on 2 committees that I chair. I chair transportation and I chair natural resources. I serve on finance and I serve on family social services. I am convinced, watching what's unfolding, that there is a coordination that goes on heavily between state agencies and federal agencies. And it is happening. And so even when we come into the state legislature and we move legislation to try and change the direction of where we're going, we can do that only to find out that the state is calling and coordinating with the federal agents saying, you need to step in. One case in point, we tried to get a road built up in Marquette County. If there's a road there, it's a gravel road, big heavy-duty gravel road. I hauled wood off for 27 years. So I know the road well. The mining company came in, wanted to spend $80 million. All they wanted to do is straighten it out and blacktop. That's what they wanted to do. And when Governor Snyder came into office, I got my natural resource chairmanship, brought them all into the situation. We couldn't get it done under Governor Granholm. Now we got a chance to do it. Sure enough, director of the DEQ made a public statement. We did a press conference in Marquette. He said, I am asking the EPA to remove their objections. I will permit the road. EPA would not remove their objections, and we never got to build the road. Even though I had letters of signed letters from every unit of government, from the city, townships, all the way up to the legislature. I had a super majority of House members that signed it. Speaker's office put his name on the letterhead. I had a super majority senators that signed it on the Senate Majority Leader's letterhead. The governor had 4 directors personally write letters saying, remove your objections, EPA, and they wouldn't remove it. To me, if there was ever a case for the 10th Amendment, there it was. And instead, we got buried in court over in Grand Rapids, and that's where it stuck. We have got to stop that, and I want to be a part of trying to stop it. That's one little example of what I've experienced with our government and how it's going. You mentioned the jails earlier. You know your stuff about the legislature. I'm impressed with the budgets and everything you knew about that. But you're exactly right. Corrections, when they shrunk down in 2006, I was in the House. Budgets didn't change 1 inch. I challenged the director up in Camp Manistee because they closed Camp Manistee. And I was up for that town hall meeting, and it was brutal. So you're accurate. You have a great idea about the regional jail, where people use a system like that or a place like that. We tried to get Camp Manistee to do that.
That was his idea.
Oh, that's right, yeah, you had that idea. Great idea. Our problem was we couldn't get our counties to agree. They all want their own jail, so they were kind of hanging on to their niche. Otherwise, we were counting on the state to give it over to the locals for $1, just transfer it over to them and then let them turn it into a facility, a regional facility. Like the jail, the county jail should be a holding area till they go through the court systems and they get tried or released or whatever it is, and then send them there if they have to do their time. So, great idea, but in that case, it was a local issue. We couldn't get the locals to look at it. I don't know if that's the same thing here, but, you know, I wanted to ask a question too about the judgeships, maybe to both of you, but one of the things that's frustrated me is we make the laws, we pass the laws, and then I hear we're supposed to, impose the laws in the courts. And I had a director that told me one time when I said, Director, you're not following the law the way we wrote it. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, well, because I was here when we wrote that law. And he said, well, Senator, we don't interpret it the same way. And so I think maybe what you're feeling here a little bit is I think what people are trying to ask, and I was just curious, because I don't know this, but if there's a law that you have to impose, and in your mind it's vague, have you ever, could a judge go to a legislature and ask them what was the intent of the law? Because it seems like we clear this up really quick. If you could go back to the sponsors of the bill itself and say, what was your intent? And I only say that if it's vague, where you could go either way on it. And it certainly seems like directors aren't doing it. I don't know if the judges are doing it. And I'll leave with this. Supreme Court, I think it's really sad that everybody in this room could tell you who are the conservative judges and who are the liberal judges.
It's on their website.
I know. We should not be able to know that. I mean, we shouldn't be able to see it.
Hey, Tom,
It should be justice served.
just a question. Do you guys not keep records at the house when you speak? Does somebody not?
Yeah, there's records there, yep.
Then how and what a law intended should actually be in public record? Like when you look at federal case law, and you go back to the Federalist Papers.
Yep.
And you go back to the Constitution, you've got a guideline to go with.
Sure. I'm just saying,
I'm just
for the sake of being,
Just a question, you guys are dead now, and
Yeah.
I want to know how to rule.
Well, in Michigan's case, with term limits, we're rolling in and out, rolling in and out, rolling out. I'm just saying, if you have an opportunity, I was glad to hear that a judge could actually do that. That is,
There's actually, they call it the legislative history, and they actually, as part of the notes on laws that are passed, they keep track of that, and that is part of the process when judges are analyzing, but as attorneys even, when we're presenting arguments to the court, we're doing the same analysis, we're looking at that legislative intent, when there is a question or when there is vagueness.
right. I would just leave with the fact that there is something's broken, because even with the fact that we know we have on the Supreme Court liberal and conservative judges, if that's the term we want to use, you would think with all the cases we've had through the years, not that they haven't, but they've been pretty doggone consistent, both sides, with where they've come down on major issues. And you would think if the judges were really being impartial and not imposing kind of their personal belief, both sides, there would be some dissension there more often. You would see what would be deemed to be maybe a liberal judge would go with some conservatives or vice versa, if in fact they were not ruling on what they personally believe. And I think that's what I kept hearing here, and I'm in the category of asking the same question, because that's what it feels like. There's such a consistency of how they're ruling, in other words, individually. You can't help but believe they're bringing in their personal biases to both sides to how they're ruling on the laws. And I'm just trying to, and on the state level, it would be nice if they would talk more to the legislature if there's confusion. If the law isn't crystal clear, ask. Because we certainly would love the directors to do it, and they're not. They're off on their own doing their own thing. But any questions?
Just quick comments. Keith was talking about newspapers. My son always says is that if it bleeds, it leads. You know, so that's what newspapers sell. That's how they sell newspapers. Talking about the jails, I know our county here in Alcona County, we're always overcrowded. We just sometimes we can't accept prisoners, and they wind up in somebody else's county jail if they've got room. And I don't understand why the counties would not accept that idea. First Amendment, freedom of religion. My interpretation was that the government, that religion had no right in government. What it was written for was that the government not interfere with religion. So I don't think there's a same thing. One last comment. I voted for you so many years ago when you ran for the first congressional district a long time ago. That's quite a while ago. How long ago was that? Oh, you ran against Bart. Excuse me. Okay, yeah, okay. And then he betrayed us with his voting on Obamacare, and I think he should be sued by the Right for Life people because they accepted all their money for years in their endorsement and then voted against them.
I think he paid a pretty good price for that one.
Oh, I think so too. I would have sued for the money. I got mad at Right for Life people and I wrote them there. I called them actually. Why they would endorse somebody who's Right for Life. Somebody else might be, but if they had one candidate there, they don't endorse them. I said, well, you shouldn't. Who cares? Endorse them if they're Right for Life. Endorse them. You know, we need to know.
Well, on the political process, he brings up a good point. I would just ask everybody, do a little bit of research, because Right to Life does that, and they endorse the incumbent.
Yeah.
And he brings up 2008 when I ran against Bart. Well, we did some research, found out in that case, Bart had a 72% voting record in Washington with Right to Life. I had a 100% voting record with Right to Life in Lansing. So we put a placard out saying that, and we gave them the website where to go look and check out the voting records. Right to Life was upset with me for doing that because they got so many phone calls and inundated with questions. I was kind of tying up the phones.
Right.
But I think it is important that it would be nice, especially if you both agree, that they would at least identify you as Right to Life rather than they made me look like I was pro-choice is what they did, the way they do it. But that's their process.
I have a question. You know, making a comment the stuff that you're working on in legislation, I was kind of interested to say that those who are against things that are faith-based are louder and those who are faith-based are not.
Right, because a lot of people, I believe, have bought into this whole separation garbage, And when you read our founding fathers'
Yeah.
letters, they talk about Jesus, they talk about Christianity, so there's no question where their faith was, and if
So
you
my
read,
question to you, because I understand that, Tom, my question to you is, how do we get the faith-based voices speaking?
Heard.
Heard?
well, that was,
We're speaking, well, somebody's not hearing, I mean, we got Overfell, and that was in our state constitution.
All right,
That's why it's important.
we're pretty much there.
How do
If you
get-
want to take that one,
okay.
and then we'll be done.
We just met today with quite a few pastors in Warren. We're convinced, and the pastors, and I guess we have a pastor here, but I think we're in one accord. We need pastors up at the podium that need to start bringing this out. And they don't have to be silent, and I think a lot of them for too long have been. And so it's gotta be coordination in that regard. Pastors have every right to speak up. They got one of the toughest jobs in the country right now, as far as I'm concerned, because they're a target. If anybody thinks that the gender issue wasn't targeted towards them, if anybody thinks the Elliott Larson wasn't a target towards the pastors, it was. It's not about equal rights, it's about shutting down
The Christian
faith-based people.
voice.
Shut it down because there's a
That's why it's
discrepancy there,
important that
and
we
that's the
know
problem.
where we stand on that,
So-
because we can see our
Okay.
rights being pulled down, and you're only dealing with the symptoms of it, and you see where the
Right.
causes it.
I'm gonna stick around, so if you have any other questions, I'll talk with you, but thank you.
Sounds great.
And
Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
Okay, now the fun begins, right? New business. I thought about moving up the family preservation revolution. We're about an hour and a half in, so, let's go over the parade and events. We are looking for people to staff some of these events. We have the 4th of July parades in Barton City and in Glenny. They run concurrent, right? Barton City in the morning and then Glenny in the afternoon.
Do you happen to have the times?
I know the one in Glenny, I do believe, starts at 2.
One or two, yeah. I heard it
Yeah.
on the radio.
Okay, okay.
And then Barton
Glenny's
City's
2
in-
o'clock.
Barton City's in the morning, I believe, and then in the evening for fireworks.
Okay, but we were hoping to do a float, which means a float, basically, we're decorating a trailer, and we need people inside the float, not just banners, people, to make it look like the Alcona County Republicans are a cohesive group that is willing to participate in their community locally and support our community.
Can I carry a sign other than Barton City or Alcona County Republicans?
As you know what? You are running for sure as sin you can. So,
I have
yeah,
a trailer that needs to be decorated. I live here on Clark Road. So if people come out, help me decorate it, I will pull it. If I get people signed up to ride the float, come to the events. If we can't get people to come out and decorate the float with me and sign up to ride it and be there,
I figure a good way to determine who wants to help participate, there's a yellow notepad right behind Dave there. If you would like to participate, put your name down. I will contact you and tell you that the 4th of July is what we're looking for, morning for Barton City and starting at 2 o'clock for Glenny. We are also looking for July 9th, my Cato's Day Parade. I will be there because it's just like down the street from me. And right now, I don't have anything set up for riding in the parade, but I do plan on having the booth with our trifold board and stuff like that. Who knows, maybe they'll put us right next to the dump tank. That'd be fun. So we also need, it would be nice if we had a few more people to staff the booth and particularly go through the parade. That starts at, I think their parade starts at noon.
I can help with the 4th, Larry. I can help you decorate, what day would you want to decorate?
Gary, is the Alcona parades, is that run by the chamber? You
I
know?
don't know, Martin City and Glenny?
There's a parade in Harrisville, but typically not one that we run a float through. It's more for the kids and, you know.
It's Saturday anyway, isn't it?
Pardon?
Is it Saturday?
No, they're doing the
4th
duck
of July
races.
is
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, but the Harrisville parade, I mean, the fireworks are Saturday. Are they having their parade?
Probably, I'm not sure, but I would think they
They just don't usually want to compete with Barton City.
Barton City's fairly decent sized, and from what I've heard, because I've never done it before, but they're a pretty good number of people.
Yes, there was a
And
lot of
Barton City.
people. I didn't do
Glenny's
the
also
parade
bigger,
last
so-
year because I couldn't get enough people to participate. We do have one box of candy, if, you know, for handouts at the parade. We probably need, you know, 2 or 3, you know, more boxes of candy, you know, hard candy to distribute if we're gonna do the parades. And, you know, that's right on top of us, so we gotta, if we're gonna do it, we need to get busy doing it. If not, I did get a call from Jim Stamus today, wanted to know what time, or yesterday, wanted to know what time the floats, or the parades were in Barton City and Glenny.
Okay.
They were there last time. Dave, if you wanna participate with us on a float, candidates are always welcome. I do have the 2 signs that I made up for the June 11th event. They will probably be on the trailer anyway. But if there's something else that you want to add to it, contribute, you know, to it, you're more than welcome to do that. Any of, you know, judges, if you would like to have your signs or whatever on our floats, you need to get, you know, get me signs, and I will make sure that they get posted. You know, on the float, but I need,
It looks like the only time we have in here listed is the Glenny 4th of July parade being at 2 o'clock. So essentially what I'm trying to get at is we need people willing to come out on the 4th of July, the 9th of July, and then of course we're going to have the Alcona County Fair, which is the 16th through the 20th, and we'll probably set up a form for that and email out. We'll have that available at the next meeting. That one's a little bit further down the road. But the July 4th and July 9th they're almost here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
for the county fair, we need to get them a check, and do we want to be inside or outside?
Inside.
Okay?
You don't want to be inside.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm telling you, you don't want to be inside. I spent too much time inside, and people don't even go in. You're better off being next to pasture, because people walk up and down there, they don't bother coming in that room. We've been there for the ranch, we've been there for a lot of different reasons. My brother's house is dead in there. I mean, it's nice in case there's a storm, but go next to pasture and hang on to him.
You get a lot more.
traffic.
A lot more traffic. Quick comment, Larry, I called Great Northern Foods about candy, and, because they sell it in bulk and probably a discount price. And if you have a tax ID number, they can sell it to you, which we have, so.
Yeah, we do.
In the future, I don't know if there's time to do anything like that now, but we can buy it from them. It's the only way they can sell it.
Well, you got the tax number, check with them. We need to get a price on candy, or take a vote on how much to spend on candy. And I think the last time that We actually did this, I think Rosie spent like $70.
Yeah,
on candy.
yeah. So, let me just go ahead and get a raise of hands. Does anybody want to participate in the 4th of July parades?
Maybe you should rephrase that.
Yeah.
Who's going to?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I'll wear my Terry Lynn Land t-shirt.
No.
We got Alcona County t-shirts if anybody needs them.
Okay, okay. How about July 9th, Mikado Days?
I'll be there for that. I got my magnet car though. I don't know if you can team up or something.
Okay, I wouldn't mind tag teaming. Is it a
If we decorate,
automatic
It's a
or,
Buick.
so it's,
automatic.
Terry,
okay, cool.
if we decorate the trailer, you know, I'll bring it to Mikado also.
Okay, okay.
You just need to,
And keep in mind that anybody who rides the floats, more than welcome to wave Tom Casperson, welcome to wave Palumbo, welcome to wave Moir. So, you know, if you are a candidate and want to show up, which I was going to move on to the vice chair report.
I guess this is where I get my 2 minutes of fame.
Yep.
Terry?
Go ahead.
Anybody that is interested, during our last meeting, my car was broke down. And I'm looking at the ballot, and there is one guy running in the 5th District for Alcona County Commissioner, Republican. I'm looking at the ballot first of all, and, you know, say what you like, there are really no races out there. I mean, the closest one we got now is supervisor, where there's a Democrat actually running against a Republican. But pretty much my clerk, my trustees, everything else, unopposed Republicans, the sheriff running here, unopposed Republican. Everybody's, you know, nobody's running about anything, and I got a Democrat there running. And district commissioners can do things for the people, and it's like, I took to the point, I said, this is enough. Because there was a resolution we're trying to pass on the transgender issue. And we want the commissioners to present this to the clerk, to present it to our elected officials and tell them, hey, we want you to do something. And I'm thinking, well, you know what, maybe it's time for me to, you know, I'm not gonna listen to this Philistine telling me how our bathrooms are gonna run up here in Alcona County. So I'm gonna tell you this, I'm taking a swing at this one. So if you got anybody you know in Mitchell Township, if you got anybody you know in Curtis Township, if you got anybody you know in Mankato, certain part, and Millen Township, let them know that they can write my name in under the Republican 5th District Commission. I have already filled out the paperwork, I just need people to write my name in.
Gary Vanuk,
Yeah.
WNUK.
And I have business cards, I'll pass them right out, so just, anybody got any idea, any questions on where I stand, you can talk to me after the meeting, I'm sure I spoke enough at these meetings, you know where I stand. It's enough, this is our country.
Gary, if you make up some signs for the float, we can.
That's what I was thinking.
Let your wife do the handwriting.
Well, you don't like my handwriting?
Just saying.
Gee, that's nice.
We will save the harshest thing for last, I do believe. I want to read the call to convention because apparently I was supposed to get that out on the 11th. Am I an idiot? Did I not bring the stupid call to convention?
Terry, I think all we need to do is just make sure that everybody is aware that we'll have a county convention on August 11th.
August 11th, 7 p.m. is the county convention.
For delegates.
Basically what we're doing is August 11th, 7 p.m. here, we are getting our delegates and alternates signed up for the state convention, which will happen on August 27th in Grand Rapids. I know it's a long distance, but I'm sure we can carpool. I think if we get our 3 delegates, we'll be very, very lucky. And I want everybody to keep in mind that the committee can appoint delegates on a temporary or a permanent basis. So we're opening up the August 11th convention to the public. If you live in Alcona County, we can upgrade you.
If you're a
If you're-
delegate,
Yeah, if you're a delegate, it would be nice if you showed up to your convention. All the delegates that we're looking at are going to be elected on the 2nd. That's the new 2-year cycle. I know if I vote for myself, I'm in. Okay, so that's the convention. You want to do yours?
yes.
Okay. We're gonna do Frank, and then he's gonna talk to you about the Chosen Ranch. And then stick around, because we are going to go over, and I would love input from as many people as possible, the Family Preservation Resolution. I will be reading it, and we will be discussing it. And so, I'm gonna hand it over to Frank.
Thank you, everybody. I was gonna just bypass this section, but I need to speak to, I mean, a lot of these folks have heard me talk about Chosen Ranch already, but I wanna talk to you too. And Tom, if I could have your attention just for a moment, please. I wanna speak to you about the Chosen Ranch. We're a Christian home for abandoned, abused, and neglected children. We deal with the kids that literally are victims of the judicial system. The decisions that you're going to make are going to affect their lives. And these kids have nobody else. We have one child that's with us that was, his father was sentenced to, I don't know, 15 years in prison. Had it coming, I'm not saying he didn't. But this kid had nobody else. His mother left him when he was 3 years old. He was left with the grandfather. The grandfather brought him to Judge Crowley and dropped him right on the court steps. You're familiar with the case. There's no place in Alcona County for this kid. This kid is so dysfunctional. If it wasn't for that man right there who's raising him today, and that man, his father, who helps these kids, we'd all be pulling our hair out of our heads right now. So, when I ask you about your faith and what your decision making is, you and so many others I get have the law here and faith somewhere in here, when really it should be the other way around. The law is given to us because of the faith, because of the God, the Creator, that gave it to us. And we are bound by the Constitution to have laws, enforce the laws that is fair all the way around. Not just the person you're shipping off to the closed down prison. But what about the families of these people? That's what I wanted to bring up to you. There's much more to this. A lot more. And I'm not saying that you don't understand it. You see it all the time. I've seen you in Crowley's court. You know, and I haven't seen you. I really don't know you. So I don't know what you're about. But I'm just pleading with you. When you get this, one of you are going to have that job. When you do, please think about the Creator that made the country, that has the laws, that affects each and every one of these children. Because they're kicked to the curb. Who's taking care of the kids? We've done studies now. We've only been in business a couple years. We've done studies that show us that in these counties that you're running in, we can look for 60 kids a year to come to our doorstep. 60 children a year at the cost of $1,300 per month per child. That covers everything from Q-tips to college. It's a huge problem. Much bigger than a closed prison. Much bigger than if you get a case kicked back to you. Because these kids are gonna be those kids that you're talking about in 3 years. What do you do with them at that? We see them rubber stamped from grade to grade just to get them through. And we also see a godless generation coming up where they don't know why they're supposed to do right from wrong. All they know is that kid over there, he's a scumbucket, his dad sells drugs, and he's driving a brand new Chevy truck. And I don't have a car. And we have to spend countless hours, him especially, through all hours of the night, explaining to these kids why. So we take the kids and we say, okay, they need a tune-up. Let's bring them back to the judge. I shouldn't even go there. I won't go there. It's very important. It's a much bigger deal than whether you have a new job or if you're knocking something off your bucket list. These kids' lives matter. They're kids. They're spawning kids left and right because they don't know they shouldn't. You know, we're separated and we put them here, we put them there. We want to build a second ranch so that we could have girls at least 15 miles away from the boys so that they can't get to each other, so we're not raising a whole other bunch of kids. You know, and it's a reality. It really is. We try to teach them why. Not that they should behave, because the law sucks. The law tells you, yeah, you shouldn't or you should. But it doesn't go on to tell you that you're being held responsible to a whole nother level. And without that, all you're doing is creating jobs. You're spinning people around through this prison system that, like I said, I spent 12 years in. Under Granholm, I'm sitting in the eyes of a confessed rapist, child molester, who got out 2 weeks later, kicked out. You had it right, it's all dollars. Couldn't afford it. So we kick them back out into our home. Where do you think they're going? Coming right back to our homes. You can't build enough jails. You just can't. You can't house all these problems. You have to deal with the root of the problem. And you, sir, I got to tell you something. These people can witness. I have not endorsed one person. I have taken signs. I've got friends that are running all different things. Have not endorsed one person. You have my vote. You have my vote. Because you're going to answer to someone much higher than me. And I just pray that you guys think about this. The lives of all these kids, it's on you. And you will be judged. Because it doesn't matter whether you believe in him. He believes in you. He created you. We need you. Please step up to the plate. And I'm not saying by going to church is going to be your magic answer, but get in touch with that higher being. We happen to know his name is Jesus Christ. His Father's our God. So thank you for your time. I'm sorry, but we hit a sore spot with me. So I probably went over.
That's all right, okay.
I don't care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, here comes the time for the long-winded family preservation resolution. We need to go over this soon because we want to get this to our legislators. What I'd like to do is go ahead and read this out loud. I had put paper and pencils over there so that people can have something to write on. Because as I read this, I want people to take notes. I want you to take note of what you don't like, what you don't understand, what you do like, so that we can discuss this thing and get it put together properly. There's a lot of problems I have with this document. But I'd like to get something solidified and signed soon.
Carrie, can you give us a little backstory on that before you start reading? Just a short Reader's Digest condensed version.
I'm going to point at you because...
You're pointing at me because I'm the one that got this, so.
one of the people running for the 106 sent me a resolution that came out of Alcona County. They're trying to petition their commissioners to push their county clerk to tell their House rep and their Senate rep to tell them, our legislatures, to handle this transgender bathroom bill. Because Tom Casperson has recently wrote a bill that's supposed to do something about this already. And it is sitting in Arlen Meekhoff's office, there to die. And I'm tired of it. And I made myself, I have called our two House reps, Pete and Jim, you know, and I told them, and I'm going to make this promise to all of you right here, right now. You're going to know where I stand. If something ain't done about this before August 2nd primary, don't go looking for me to push any more people to go there and do nothing. Because this is where this thing hits the wall. We have to start putting up the fence of decency, or this comes to an end. I mean, for crying out loud, for how many years? I mean, back in 1961, they expected me, 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, to read a sign on the door that said boys, and no, that was the room I used. You know, I didn't get the option of going in the girls' room. We had no problems. Now all of a sudden this is a problem. So we're going to get this done, and this resolution is going to be brought, we're going to try to get it to our commissioners by August before the, before the Department of Education makes their decision this August. This is what we're against. Now they've done it in Sheboygan. This is a copy that I got from what they're doing in Sheboygan. So with that note, did that answer your question, Dave?
Well, I'd like to know what law exactly that the Department of Education is using to base their...
This is the Obama edict, is part of it.
Obama has nothing to do with our, unless of course it's got to do with the money, right?
You know what? Obama flat out said, you know,
He
let
had
the
that
transgenders use whatever bathroom they feel like,
Congress pass a law.
or we're gonna cut your funding. That is basically what he said, and that is what is making everybody in the state panic. And so they're trying
Just refuse
to,
them and stop playing these games. If they want to suck up to these people, then they can continue being little
Well, the
slaves.
first thing I guess I would like is,
Say no.
I guess what
All right,
I'm
all right,
looking
all right.
for is unity on the legislation.
exactly.
So that we can
What
tell
we
them as
would
a
like-
state, we don't want this.
What we would like to do is solidify this document, get it signed by as many townships, as many counties, as many organizations as we possibly can to get this to our legislators and tell them enough is enough. So let me go over this, let me read it. This is called the Family Preservation Resolution. Whereas the Obama administration and Michigan State Board of Education has overstepped its jurisdiction and has no right to supersede our constitutional parental rights as parents or grandparents. Whereas the Obama administration and the Michigan Department of Education has no authority to legislate over parental rights to allow students to choose their gender, name, pronoun, and bathroom or locker rooms. Whereas the ramifications of this irresponsible and dangerous policy are too many to mention, and as we, the people and parents, cannot permit this travesty and danger to our youth in our country and Alcona County. Whereas all transgender youth's rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are currently protected under constitutional rule of law and are currently protected from assault and or battery, which includes bullying. Whereas transgender policy is exposing Alcona County's youth and citizens to sexual predators and is an overreach of authority and unnecessary. Whereas the Obama administration is threatening to cut funding to our education system for non-compliance to transgender policies. Now be it resolved that the Alcona County Republicans condemns in no uncertain terms the unconstitutional transgender rule from the Obama administration on May 13, 2016, is inimical to the liberty, security, and well-being of the youth and people of Alcona County and the free people of Michigan as adopted by the Obama administration in violation of the limits of federal power and the United States Constitution. Be it resolved, the Alcona County Republicans condemns in no uncertain terms the unconstitutional transgender policy. See, this is the redundancy that I'm talking about. Security, well-being of young people, free Michigan, we're going to miss that. Be it resolved, the Alcona County Republican stands firm in its representation of we the people of Alcona County and calls for non-compliance to any unconstitutional transgender rules initiated by the Obama administration for all county and government services with notifications sent out to offices by the Alcona County Clerk, and be it resolved that the Alcona County Republicans stand firm in its representation of we the people of Alcona County and call for non-compliance to any unconstitutional transgender policies initiated by the Michigan Department of Education and the State Board of Education for the Superintendent of Schools in Alcona County not to initiate said policies in any schools in Alcona County. Be it resolved, the Alcona County Republicans agrees that the Alcona County Board of Commissioners may call for unisex bathrooms if deemed necessary. And be it resolved, the Alcona County Republicans call for the Alcona County Board of Commissioners to demand that Governor Rick Snyder, Michigan House of Representatives, Michigan Senate, Michigan Congressional House Representatives, and finally, U.S. Senators to stand firm with other states such as Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina in defiance of Obama's transgender decree under and by the right of the 10th Amendment of the United States of America. And be it further resolved, the Alcona County Republicans call for the Alcona County Board of Commissioners to direct the Alcona County Clerk to send notifications of said actions to Governor Rick Snyder, Attorney General Bill Schuette, all 83 Michigan Board of Commissioners, State Board Education Chairman John Austin, all board members of the State Board of Education, Michigan Department of Education, State Superintendent of School Brian Whiston, to all Congressional House of Representatives, all state representatives, see that should be Senate, but anyway, in order to safeguard our individual freedoms and civil liberties of the citizens of the Alcona County and the state of Michigan from an overpowering federal government and an out-of-control Michigan Board of Education. That is very wordy.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Make a motion.
That we establish a committee to review that and edit it as required.
That is
to
a
be
good
signed
motion.
by the chairman.
I don't think we need a committee for that.
Okay.
I'll sign it right now,
You want to sign this the way it is?
the way it is, you know. We need to move on this stuff. It's gonna be, you throw it into a committee, it's gonna be another month before anything else
Give me a
happens.
week to rewrite it to the point where it's readable, for one thing, and
If
it's
you wanna
something that they will, this, the way it's written, does not follow any of these rules of writing resolutions,
Okay.
okay? It is not simple, it is not easily interpreted, not like this petition.
Harry, clean it up, and I'll
That's
sign it.
why, the concept is great.
Yeah.
I love the concept. I'm a committee of one.
Committee of one.
So,
Anybody
the first
opposed
motion,
to this
the first motion
resolution?
was Dave's.
I'll second
Does anybody-
Dave's motion.
No, don't.
Am I the committee?
Let that die. If you-
Okay,
If
so,
you don't want a committee, let it die. You
Well,
just-
I mean, no, I think.
You
I'm
make a
gonna go
motion
with-
that Carrie fix it, and then you
Yeah.
vote on it. and-
Yeah, clean it up. We'll clean it up,
Okay.
and then we'll sign it.
okay, the motion
Yeah.
is that I fix it and present it to the
Larry
board.
signs.
And
It
Larry
goes
signs.
off.
Is anybody in the room opposed to this resolution in principle? Yes, no?
We're gonna say no.
Okay,
Nobody's
Carrie,
opposed to
can I make one other suggestion too? There's been a religious freedom bill that's been pondering, can you come up with
a resolution too on that one, that we get that moving through as well?
If you start something, I'll finish it.
I'll start something. I'll find out somebody that didn't like that and I'll write it
You
down.
can
Yeah,
work on that
because-
one for the next meeting.
Here's another thing about this. There's absolutely no author. That is number one thing that legislators are gonna look at. Who the heck wrote this thing? Should I even listen to them? Does it even matter?
Signed by the chairman of the Republican Committee, doesn't matter who wrote it.
Well, not according to these.
And well, it'll be signed by the
If
board.
he signed it, then he wrote it.
If he signed it, then he wrote it.
Usually that's what it implies.
That's the indication.
Basically, it's gonna be, at the end, proposed by the author of it, and then approved by.
Can't make the law.
Because it says approved by, and that's exactly what they want you to do. Who approves it? What organizations approve it? Does this make sense to you two?
I guess I won't try and.
Because I mean,
They're gonna presume that who signs it, so then, they're gonna attribute that to them.
Especially if you say you're a chair of that Alcona County, you know what's gonna come from.
Carrie,
yes,
in hearing it, as you read it, I have a couple of thoughts
Okay,
I'd like to
please.
share with you. I think it's very passionate, and I think, and angry, and I think if you tone it down with a couple really important points, it would go further. Because the people, the whole country already knows how we think about this. It's just, if we're just ranting, they're not gonna pay one iota worth of attention to it.
that's what I'm
So
afraid
if
of.
there's some kind of, point that we can get across, it's not just about Obama's desire to protect people's identity and their self-respect, which he's trying to do with the JIT. That also applies to little girls and little boys who have been raised to be modest. So if Obama is concerned at all about their personal identity, then before he lets this thing happen, he's going to have to close every gap in every stall and every toilet in America. Because I really don't want to look at some guy's wee-wee, and I don't want him looking at me. And I know my little girl, my grandkids don't want that. It's going to open a can of worms in their homes.
Oh, there's a
Why
huge pile of
is their
lawsuits.
identity as in there's a word, I don't know the word, but their identity is just as important as the transgender's
This is where
identity.
law is dangerous.
Well, this is where you have a separation of powers, because if the legislature can't push back from the executive branch, that's when the courts can come into play. Because a judge can tell the President of the United States, you're out of line. And see, this is where the importance of the separation of powers in our system of government is very important.
This is why we have a judicial branch, an
Exactly.
executive branch,
Yeah, but we
and a
don't
legislative branch.
we don't even see that.
Well, it
that's not
brings into
happening
play
anymore.
that really important word, I don't know if you girl, Ms. Palumbo, and you learned that in your attorney school. But the Bible says that the letter of the law killeth, but the spirit of the law giveth life. So the spirit of the law is to protect innocent people and treat them with loving kindness. That's the spirit of the law. But the letter of the law in this situation is just absurd and skewed.
There's not even any law.
This is a new regulation, and who knows what will happen. You know, as you talk about your position on it, yes, that's our system of government, to object to it and try to get your board of commissioners behind it. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Failing that, if you cannot get the legislative branch to change the direction of this, I guess a polite way of saying it, no, I could see litigation come out of this thing too.
Well, let me make an argument for you. I made it to my wife. She said it sounded pretty good. Obama talked about, people that are on the no-fly list should not have a gun. And if we can save one life
by taking people up, you know, by not issuing one gun to one person that would kill one person. Now granted, you'd have to have a person of interest type thing, but you're gonna do that. My question is then, okay, now I'm gonna allow this transgender thing to take place, and I get a pedophile that goes into a male or a female's bathroom and costs a young man or a young woman. You know, we're gonna put that at risk, but we won't, you know.
Well, you know, the thing is here, you're talking to your frustration, I understand it, because trust me, as a judicial candidate, I'm keeping my mouth shut on this because it's something I really can't speak out about without acting unethical as a judicial candidate. I could tell you, I mean, I have a niece, I have a wife, let's use common sense.
Okay.
That's all I'll say. The thing is, where I see this going is if the administration keeps with it, and the legislative branch checks and balances doesn't work, yes, that's where the courts come into play. Say, hey, hold on, time out. How about their civil rights? That's the whole reason we have 3 branches of government. That's why you have to have judges who are independent and are not beholden to Democrats, Republicans, whoever.
Well, that's why you don't hire
Because-
judges that are either conservative nor
Right.
Republican,
That's-
that go the
I
line
mean,
of the law.
I'll guarantee you, sir, there are people who, this group is a very, I can tell, very, very Christian group. You've expressed that. I'm sure there are a lot of Jewish people that are against this.
It's all the same people, really, when you look at the lineage.
I think we would stand a better shot at defeating this whole thing if we made a case that the government had to issue privacy screens for every toilet in America, every public toilet in America. And we could come up with, make it sound really sensible, come up with the cost. You know,
Probably would
vinyl
be astronomical.
versus screening versus something or other.
Is
Who's
she
gonna
against the
design them?
resolution idea?
Who's gonna manufacture them?
Okay.
But it would be the right of every citizen to preserve their modesty, children or adults.
I think so, I mean,
Well, I know the
See, that's one
government's
of the
not gonna
things
wanna
that I have
cough that up.
problems with
I wouldn't
this. It
trust it,
doesn't
because look what they did with
focus on,
same-sex marriage. And people are strong-armed to participate in that industry. When you see what they did with same-sex marriage, and even though in our Constitution, in many states they voted, I don't trust them.
Oh, of course not.
okay.
We don't, any of us, probably nobody
This
in this room
resolution right
trusts.
here, I'm trying to make better, okay? There are 4 parts of a resolution. The title, which needs to be succinct and representative. Family preservation resolution, it's succinct, but is it representative of what we're trying to say?
It's too broad.
It's way too broad.
Yes.
Privacy.
So that's one
Right
problem.
to privacy.
Number 2, supporting information. Why the resolution is being presented. It should be brief and persuasive. In particular, it should not cover any topics that are in the official policy which is under dispute. So basically, the Obama administration's edict does not cover costs. It does not cover, as Janet put it, the right for girls or boys to
Privacy.
identify with, it does not cover their rights. This one sentence here, our constitutional parental rights, you know the Michigan State Constitution, are constitutional parental rights in there? Or are they just implied?
We wish they would be.
Well,
Tom, yes or no?
That's a loaded question.
No, it's not a loaded question, but as Keith has mentioned before, and we sit here and you think, they're not saying anything, they're not speaking up. But what he mentioned, the idea that as judicial candidates, we are really constrained with what we can say and what we can't say. And one of the things that we can't do is we can't weigh in on any controversy that we could then participate in. And so,
Being a witness and can't watch,
right, so as we sit here and we have,
Being a jury.
we're both kind of bursting with thoughts and
Well,
comments,
we wouldn't
but
want to cause you
we're
any grief.
trying to, you know,
Is there anything you need from us, or we can dismiss you if you'd like? Or, I mean,
I always make it a practice to stick around and talk to people. You know, I can tell you, a year ago,
You're on
when I
camera.
wasn't running for judge, I would weigh in my 2 cents as a concerned citizen. A judge, or even a candidate for judge, has to accept restrictions on their personal behavior. Because yes, you would get my 2 cents worth. But that's a year ago, before I made the decision to pursue this. Hopefully I become a judge and I'm willing to deal with that infringement on my liberty, basically, for the consideration of the privilege of serving as a judge. But come January 1st, if I come day after Election Day, I'm not that person. I'm back to being Keith Moir, and I'll sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and talk to you about it.
Well, that's part of why your background and upbringing is so important in understanding your
We
belief
all
in
know,
Christian
we
values.
all know that you guys, both of you have stated, letter of the law, I'm a judge, I'm impartial. We know that. We know that about David Riffle as well. It's your background. It's why did you get into the legal system? It's you were raised, you know, Catholic or Christian or whatever. That's what we're trying to dig at. And I know it's hard for you guys to say that because you are running for judge and you are supposed to be impartial. But this is the dual, two-phase, you know, law, home life.
I became a lawyer, and I'm seeking to become a judge because I feel people should be treated fairly, and everybody's rights should be considered. And I don't want to, if I go anywhere further, I am on camera, but even then, I take my obligations that I undertake seriously. That is a general proposition, that everyone should be considered, everyone should be considered fairly. Beyond that, I'm not worthy of the office if I go beyond that. That's the situation. Earlier you were talking about these abused and neglected children. I understand. Chosen Ranch has done a great job. You know, when you get down to the basics, teachers, police officers, prosecutors, judges, lawyers, all have to deal with the damage that's caused if the basic family doesn't properly raise and invest in their children. The responsible members of society, for the most part, have had that type of upbringing, regardless of socioeconomic status, the type of belief. But we see it time and time again. We see the second generations. We got Junior now stealing cars. 15 years ago, Dad was stealing cars. We get it. Don't misunderstand it. We get it. We understand it. I'll never forget one time, an attorney made a comment, a younger attorney made a comment. Oh, this criminal defense work, it's just damage control. And an older judge said to him, you know something? The police did their job the right way. The prosecutor did their job the right way. It's probably all it is damage control. A lawyer stands there to make certain the government follows the Constitution, guilt is beyond a reasonable doubt. I told a client one time to plead straight up the way he was charged, because I know full well they had him under charge. And some young attorneys couldn't believe I pled the guy straight up. Well, because I already got my plea bargain. And Tom Whittle pretty much told me that. Yeah, you figured that out. I was going to put about 4 more on, and did, yeah. And if you put more 4 on, I'd be asking, can you plead this guy down to a couple? So rather than mess around with that, just on a starting gate, that's what you get. That's what comes with experience. But we all get it. Every one of us have had the privilege of families that have been supportive of us, educations that have got us where we're at. None of us would be here if we didn't have families that were behind us then and now.
I get it.
You shut the recorder off.
When I run around, basically, at this point, I would like to call the meeting adjourned, and
I'll
So-
second your motion to close the meeting.
Yay,
Do
okay.
we have
I'm
a
not even-
quorum in favor?
Yes. So the meeting is adjourned. Nicole and Keith and Tom are here for anybody to
Who's left?
make a quick round robin because they're out the door.
Good to see you.
And I forgot
Awesome.
of the prison care.
2 hours, 24 minutes,
You can,
and we have 9 minutes of battery left.
Oh, you're pretty good.